I'm not quite as interested in the decaying swamp. I think we have a pretty good idea of what From does when it comes to swamps at this point. Why, hello there. It is 141 days until Elden Ring releases on January 21st, 2022, and this is the Elden Wait. On today's Elden Wait, we are going to look at the 6 new images that came out of Gamescom after the embargo lifted on the preview event that was held privately for journalist outlets and a few select creators. And a few of these images have also gone up on the Elden Ring Twitter account, and I will include with it the quote that was posted up with the images when it is applicable. So with that, let's get into it. The first image I'm going to show is one that was posted by the Elden Ring Twitter account, and the quote is, "Tarnished who accept Melina's accord find fellowship here." We know that this is the hub of Elden Ring according to VaatiVidya's impressions along with others, and in the center here, you can see what is a large lost grace, which are like the bonfire equivalent checkpoint of Elden Ring. And we can see at this lost grace, there appear to be swords sticking into this dais or something with a round table around it. And it is worth noting that these swords are growing like roots on the end. And this makes sense because the Elden Ring is represented in the lands between by the Erd tree, and there is a lot of tree imagery, so I'm not surprised that there are roots growing out of these swords. And I think this is specific to these swords because you can also see in these crypt-like recesses along the wall that there are other swords tucked away in here, like they're being stored, and they do not have roots on them. This is specific to the ones that are here as part of the Lost Grace. Now, in general, talking about this image otherwise, I'm not sure of the function of the building beyond being a hub. There is a fireplace off to the left-hand side. It is not lit, and the place seems to be in a state of disrepair. You can see a broken chair on the floor. There are some scattered pieces of paper also on the floor, as well as many untended candles. And another element worth noting about this building in general is that beyond the Lost Grace, you can see what appears to be a door. I think that may be the entrance, and some stairs coming down. And I think from this context clue, along with these windows that you can see around, that I think this building may be at least partially underground. And I think that because you can see the sills are slanted, as you might find in subterranean windows, and just the fact that the stairs are coming down means that the ground or whatever is outside of this door is higher than this room. For those reasons, I think there's a chance that this may be somewhat subterranean in nature, and the fact that it kind of looks like a crypt with these recesses. Crypts were often the basement of churches or, other buildings. So this also could potentially be a mausoleum, but those were also sometimes at least partially subterranean. And a couple of architectural elements I wanted to mention was that the ornament sort of along the wall where it seems to turn to wood, the detailing here along this upper level is similar to the detailing we've seen for Stormvale Castle. And that isn't to suggest that this is at Stormvale Castle, but it does bring up a continuity of architectural design and detailing that unites these places. And of course, Stormvale Castle is one of the homes of the demigod lords, so it is not a surprise that this, which also seems to be a somewhat hallowed or sacred place, also has similar architectural details to other important locales in the lands between. And another element worth noting is that there's a number of statues around the room, and they are all the same statue, and it is of a person who has in front of them, it's either a root or a tree growing, and at the end it seems to be flowering. And this, I would believe, ties into the lost grace in the middle, the roots growing out of that, and just the prevalence of Erd tree symbolism in the game so far. And the other thing I wanted to note is that it appears that there might be some scarification or otherwise disfigurement of these statues. Their faces seem to be scarred in a way that I don't think is just texture but intentional, as you can tell that other portions of the statue are smoother, so this sort of scar or cragginess on the face seems to be representing something specific about the condition of whoever this is supposed to represent. This next image was also posted up by the Elden Ring Twitter account, and the accompanying quote was, "Dangers await those who trek for the ramparts of Stormvale." We know that Stormvale Castle is the previously what I called the Lion Castle. It has been featured in the gameplay trailer and in other promotional materials. And this is seemingly taking place in the area that we have seen frequently in the trailer, the Veldt, as Bandai Namco refers to it as in the description, leading up to Stormvale Castle in the distance. And we can see fighting the Wyvern here, which is believed to be in this location, as just noticed by a few landmarks from the gameplay trailer. This may be a different encounter with a Wyvern, but that is at least where we know it to be. Elements worth noting is it might be exciting for players that the player character is wielding a twin blade in this image. It has been confirmed in the impressions that twin blades are a weapon type in Elden Ring, but we can see it in the image here. And I also noticed that the feathery wyvern has some golden touches on its skin, which aren't surprising, but I just wanted to make note of that. We can see in the background the Erd tree, and you can make out the snowy mountain with the bowl on top. But perhaps the most interesting part of the image for me are the golden trees that are sort of blocked by the wyvern, but you can see that there are two golden trees in the distance from the wyvern. And I think this actually relates to these trees in another image, and based on what Tamor said on a stream talking about his impressions, he indicated that there were some other golden trees seen, that they were much smaller in scale than the Erd tree. So there may just be other golden trees that probably bear some significance, but I don't think so far that there are multiple Erd trees that we've seen or anything of similar importance. I think these are smaller and not as important. This next image I really like, and it is also something that was shared by the Elden Ring Twitter account, and the accompanying quote is, "Traveling to the dark corners of the lands between is often necessary and not always voluntary," which seems to be telling me that this is a bad place, which if you can't get that based on these messenger ass looking dudes all seemingly wailing in pain and this giant skeleton, then, you know, seems to be throwing up some red flags. But so we have all of these petrified people, and you can tell that their proportions and stuff are all sort of out of whack. So if they're humans, there's been some sort of transformation there. This image seems to feature these sort of human-sized, petrified, messenger-looking people, and then a large skeleton sitting on a large chair that seems to perhaps also function as a building. And this skeletal figure, I compared against other ornament on people such as this guy from the marsh, and I didn't see anything that completely matched, but they have similar use of rings on their fingers. There's an anklet on this large skeleton as well as the marsh guy, but they're different designs. But the other stuff worth noting is you can see a waterfall in the background, and then a large building or complex. And I wanted to make note that the building in the background seems to be not at a scale for this large skeleton, but at a scale more, for human sized. So the function of the building in the background seems to be not in service of being a space to be inhabited by the large skeleton, but for those who seem to be worshipping or prostrating before. This next image was also shared with the previous image on the Elden Ring Twitter account, and so it has the same quote: "Traveling to the dark corners of the lands between is often necessary and not always voluntary." And I think that this place is similarly obviously foreboding, as you have these giant sort of golem looking ladies who have their eyes closed and they're kind of crying, and they have like axe and flail limbs, and they're holding a baby. Now it seems to me that these enemies might be golems, and I think that because you see the mask and just the unnatural design and the fact that they're sitting on these bases, and you can sort of see with the design of what looks like the clothing that they may rotate in order to lash out with these axes, almost like they're standing sentry in front of whatever this place is behind, which features a number of strung up corpses, including the troll we have seen featured elsewhere. Some other details about these ladies is that beyond having the axe and flails, is that they also feature heavy serpent imagery in their design. It sort of wraps around their shoulders and comes together like a belt with two serpent heads around the waist. And this continues into the design on what looks to be the dress, whether it is actually a dress or just designed to look like a dress. There are more snakes along the front design, and there's generally a lot of sort of tentacle serpent-like designs about it. And you can see even the base looks like it could theoretically be made up of serpents. And that makes me think of the concept art image, which features the guy turning into a snake, which we've seen in the background of this image, which seems very similar. The guy in the painting, and also that the people there also are wearing masks, and meaning that these areas may be connected. I also wanted to point out that it looks like there may be like a little door up there or something. It is glowing white. I'm not quite sure what it is, but it might be a small doorway in the distance. You can also see a tattered banner featuring the Erd tree, which we have seen in other areas. This next image does not have an Elden Ring Twitter quote to go along with it yet. It features a large sort of horse-like looking guy with his snout, and then 4 goblin-like dudes surrounding him. The big guy is casting magic of some kind and has this really cool Erd tree rune sort of glowing as he casts. We have seen a lot of symbols popping up as magic is cast in this game, and it is interesting to see the Erd tree as a recurring theme, which makes a lot of sense. And you can actually see the Erd tree just peeking out in the background. And then of course we can also see the player character, who appears to be wielding a rapier of some kind. And we can also see a bush in the background with the red flowers, which seem to be a resource that we can probably collect out in the open world. And in this final image, we have a player character or NPC who seems to be casting some kind of magic. Again, you can see the Erd tree in the rune, and the symbol here is actually a symbol we have seen before from the gameplay trailer. You can see it on these cobblestones as a repeated pattern, as well as on these tents at the encampment in the gameplay trailer. The NPC seems to have a wheel both around their neck and around at least one of their ankles. This is a very interesting design. And there are also a number of skeletons in this, and you can see skeletons are wrapped under tree roots almost as if they were trapped in place by the roots in this image. And there are also white torches, which we have seen in the gameplay trailer as well, white torches. And I don't know the significance of the torches being white, except for it makes them sort of unnatural, as if these are magically lit torches or something along those lines. And we also see what appear to be these like little goblin gargoyle creatures, which are approaching the player character or NPC in this image. The heavy root imagery that you see here, both with the skeletons, and then you can also see more roots in the background, are sort of reminiscent of from the gameplay trailer, the Valkyrie Arena, where you can see a lot of roots in the background. I'm not sure if these places are connected or if this is a common feature of what might be underground locations. One thing I wanted to note is that this appears to be a spell being cast of some kind, but I was also wondering if this could also be a Lost Grace being activated. It has that golden color of the Lost Grace, but I don't think gold is going to be an uncommon color to show up in Elden Ring. But just because we've seen this symbol around before, the significance of it may be relating to that, and I thought that perhaps this could be something that the player does when they're sort of activating a Lost Grace. So those were the 6 images that we got. I guess in the hands-off preview event, there were other images shown in a slideshow before the gameplay video was shown, and those images, according to impressions, included a snowy cave with tooth-like pillars, a place featuring reddish foam, a boiling swamp, a flooded city, wintry plains, an autumnal forest, and a decaying swamp. So, some pretty interesting sounding locations, especially I'm curious what the reddish foam is, and what's going on with that tooth cave, and I'm not quite as interested in the decaying swamp. I think we have a pretty good idea of what From does when it comes to swamps at this point. But there are the images that we have been shown following Gamescom, and just my general thoughts and things I picked out as I was looking at these images. Nothing super groundbreaking. They're all very sort of intentionally cropped and intentionally chosen images to be evocative, but also not give away too much in the background, but still helps to flesh out the world. I really love especially the image with the sort of Gollum axe ladies with the baby with them, as well as the image with the large skeleton. I just love the playing with scale and also the sort of body horror and weirdness of the world. Let me know in the comments if there's anything in these images you noticed that I didn't mention in the video, and I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out this Friday, if we have another one of these images posted with a quote, or what exactly comes out. But we will find out then on the next Elden Wait. Thanks for watching.